Well, the Right to Information Act has been a landmark law for India because it's given ordinary citizens like you and me the ability and the power to ask the government pretty much anything we want. I think apart from very sensitive national security issues, if you have a question for the government, for instance, how much money was, let's say, spent on a certain event, or what qualifications ex-bureaucrat may have for a certain position, you pretty much got all those answers. There have been attempts before to try and dilute this act, but they've always met with a certain degree of resistance from activists and from the opposition. It happened under the UPA, and now it has happened once again under the NDA. So for months now, there was a buzz that the NDA government was planning to amend the Right to Information Act yet again, diluting key provisions of it. And finally, they were supposed to bring a bill in the Rajya Sabha today, but at the last minute, they have deferred that. They've decided that this bill will now be tabled in the next session of Parliament and not this one. Sources telling NDTV that the government is determined to go ahead with this bill, even though it seems to have come under pressure today, especially after Rahul Gandhi jumped into the debate. We had seen activists protesting all this time. They even held a protest march in Parliament. But Rahul Gandhi, the Congress president, tweeted this morning that the dilution of the RTI Act should not take place and that people needed to speak up about that. So those amendments are still very much on the table. It is entirely possible that this bill will be brought in the next session instead. Joining us here tonight are the people who really fought to keep the RTI alive. We have Aruna Roy, social activist, joining us via Skype tonight. Anjali Bhardwaj also has been fighting this battle and leading from the front. Shailesh Gandhi is a former Central Information Commissioner. Rajesh Sharma is a member of the BJP, and Mohammad Khan is joining us from the Congress. Aruna Roy, to you first. You heard this news. All right, we're going to go back to her in just a moment. Anjali, first, your reactions to this, the fact that this has been deferred. Are you breathing a sigh of relief, or do you think that, we have to wait to see what happens next?
Well, let me begin by saying that this was done very, very surreptitiously. There was absolutely no information in the public domain about the government, from the government, that they were going to bring in a bill to amend the RTI law or what the contours of that bill were going to be. There was a lot of speculation, and finally only yesterday did we get a copy of the bill. There has been no public consultation on the bill. So if today we are hearing that this might have been deferred, we do hope that good sense prevails, but we are certainly worried that if the government is going to move like this, then it could be sprung upon people at any point in time without giving them any notice. And we believe that this amendments, the amendments that have been proposed, will very, very seriously weaken people's fundamental right to information.
So just to bring our viewers up to date on what exactly those amendments are that are being proposed, and these were just made public at the last minute, literally, when it was clear that they were planning to introduce a bill. Essentially, it means that now the government would want control over deciding the tenure, the salaries and other terms of service of the Central Information Commissioner and the Information Commissioners. Until now, they haven't really had the power to do that, to interfere with that. They also would have their position downgraded. Right now, they are at par with, say, the Chief Election Commissioner and the other election commissioners. This would, bring them down to, a different level in the government. And therefore, that is what people like Anjali Bhardwaj are saying would amount to interference by the government. Anjali, it's not the first time that governments have tried to dilute the RTI Act. In fact, it even happened under the UPA when attempts were made to bring in amendments, even though ironically it was that government which introduced this act. Sure. So obviously it's worked, which is why it's making governments nervous.
Absolutely. So the context, if I may just take a moment to lay that out, is that, the right to information law in the country has been owned and demanded by the people, and people have used it in very large numbers. Every year, 4 to 6 million RTI applications are filed, and mostly applications are being filed by ordinary citizens who are asking for their very basic rights and entitlements, like their rations, their pensions, and so on. But it's not just that. People are also using the right to information law to question the highest offices in the government, whether it is educational qualifications of their elected representatives, or it is how much money has been spent on different deals, or it's about assets and liabilities of those in power. And I think that is something that has continuously rattled governments, and there has been a backlash. And you're right, this is not the first time. Even earlier attempts have been made to try and amend the law, but I think the nature in which it has been done this time, the way it was done in an absolute sense in secrecy, I think that's concerning. The other thing also is that there is a serious attack, like you said, on the independent functioning of information commissions this time, which is essentially they are the institutions that are responsible for ensuring that we get our right to information. So when there is an attack on this independent institution, it impacts people's right to information, and I think it's very much in line with what this government has been doing after coming to power on the plank of anti-corruption. We are seeing that all institutions of accountability, of transparency
are being undermined. Rajesh Sharma ji, so what happened? I mean, you're not an MP, but you know, today when Rahul Gandhi suddenly came into this entire issue, we suddenly see that the government decides not to table this bill. So was it the opposition to the bill that finally made the government realize that we need to hold back on this till a later
No, there
date?
is no need to hold back this. It is very clear. There was nothing. It is all the thing of opposition that they want to cry on this and make an issue of this, which was only few clauses of 3 of the sections are being amended, where only the salary part as well as the terms of for how many years they will be there on office, that will be decided by the central government. In all the statutory bodies, this is being decided by the central government. So there is nothing unusual. It is not a constitutional body as Election Commission, and it should have the same power as Election Commission. No, it is the same work they are doing. No, it is not. And a lot of hue and cry is also made that lot of changes are being done. The key system is being changed. No, it is not so. The rule, regulation, the role, the power, the obligation.
If this is not a big deal, then why wasn't the bill tabled in Parliament? If everything is so great about this bill, why wasn't it tabled in Parliament?
Might be, it can be, it was a decision, it could have been taken for some reason. But at the same time, the way they are saying that we came for corruption, let it be very clear, today we have passed 2 bills. One is amendment to the Prevention of Corruption Act. And on passing that, it was even irony that a former finance minister, P. Chidambaram, is charge-sheeted today itself in the same bill. And that is our plan for corruption. And at the same time, fugitive persons who have run fugitive economic offenders bill, that is also bought by us.
So I keep asking, if there was nothing wrong with this RTI amendment bill, then why not just table it?
No, about RTI, what I am saying, that nothing keys was being changed. That you need to know. The powers were there, independence should have been there. There was nothing of rules, objective, power, applicability.
How would it have been there if the government was going to decide that salaries and tenures of?
So salary and tenure is not in all the statutory bodies. The government is deciding it, and there is nothing such. And who told? They are making hue and cry. Prior to that, 5 years term is there in the act, and government would have also decided.
The Central Information Commission is a very, very important body. Well, I'll just come to you because we do have Aruna Roy and Shailesh Gandhi as well, and I'll just come to you, Mohammad Khan. Aruna Roy, are you breathing a sigh of relief that this has been deferred today by the government, or not just yet?
Well, I would be happy if it was withdrawn. The fact that it's deferred only shows that the government has rightly got cold feet, because after all, the amendments, proposed amendments, do not strengthen the law. They weaken the institutions of commission. They reduce its independence and its authority. And without independence and authority, the Right to Information Commission is pretty useless. So I think it has deferred it also because so many thousands of people have signed a petition in protest against it, and of the 60 to 70 lakh users, there'll be many more lakhs who will protest in the days to come. It is a law that was passed with fair degree of rationality, with a lot of legislative consultation, but also pre-legislative consultation with people, and this law is well understood by the people of India. So any tampering with the law is clearly understood, and it is understood as interfering with the independence and rights of institutions that this government has been continually doing. And without independence and without the liberty to critique the government, this law is pretty useless.
But as you say, until this bill is actually withdrawn, you will not rest easy, because it just means it's been deferred.
I think we will continue to struggle, we'll continue to protest, and we'll continue to say what we think till it's actually withdrawn, because we do not believe that a deferring of a bill is an acceptance of the fact that it should never have been tabled at all without consultation.
We have Shailesh Gandhi joining us as well, who's also been a former Central Information Commissioner. And Shailesh Gandhi, can I ask you, firstly, we didn't know for the longest time, as Anjali Bhardwaj was pointing out in the beginning, what these amendments were going to be. Now we know what they will be. The BJP says this is not a big deal. This is how, you know, all tenures and salaries are decided on statutory bodies. But why is this different for the Central Information Commission? Why is it important to keep the government away from deciding salaries and tenures of information commissioners? Please explain that to us.
It is obvious that independence is not there if somebody calls the shots and decides how long you can stay and what the salary will be. And then it's like an average government officer is controlled through transfers. But I think there is something more sinister. The amendments proposed were not very significant. I think the idea was to push in more amendments as the story progressed. And I personally feel, and I am thankful to the government for that, my own analysis is government is not going to bring it back. They have realized the opposition. For their ego's sake, they don't want to concede that, but I think they have effectively dropped it because they realize there is a large number of people in this nation who look at this as their sole tool for getting a participatory democracy. And if they try and make any changes to this law is one of the best laws in the world. Operationally, it is not operating as well as it should, but we are all fighting that battle with all my colleagues who are on this panel today. But their objective was, I think, to push in larger amendments after this to ensure that first we start with some simple amendments. That, I think, is stopped. Government has been wise, is I would like to believe. If they come again, they must realize that there will be an electoral price to pay for this, because the RTI citizens, this is a citizens empowerment tool, and you cannot take it away and believe that you can continue with democracy. There is also another thing which I just learned today, which gives me a thought. The only reasoning given is that the Election Commission is a constitutional body and the information commissioners are a statutory body. There is really no difference. It's mindless quibbling. By this count, the Niti Aayog, the Human Rights Commission, the Women's Commission, Lok Ayuks and Lokpal, whenever it comes, are all statutory bodies because they were not thought of when the constitution was made. By law, they are all completely equivalent. And this commission has the job of defending the citizens' fundamental right to information. I also feel that if they do anything further with this, that's a signal that they are likely to do something to right to publish and right to speech.
The point is, over time, Mohammad Khan, you know, I think as Mr. Gandhi rightly pointed out, even the way the RTI is being implemented right now, you know, there are issues with that. Often we see that there is stonewalling on information. And today we suddenly saw Rahul Gandhi coming out in support. Do you think that the government suddenly backed off because of political and pressure from the activists who've been really, you know, at it as far as this is
absolutely.
concerned?
The campaign run by Anjali ma'am and her colleagues was indeed very overwhelming for these people. They didn't realize they'd be met with this bulwark of opposition. They didn't realize that a party like the Congress would stand shoulder to shoulder with them and of course fight them on the dilution of this law. I would in fact remind them, and this is something I think nobody has touched upon yet. You know, Nidhi, you asked, what is the harm or what can they achieve by reducing the terms or altering the terms of information commissioners? The answer actually lies in a 2014 judgment of the Supreme Court. 5 judges of the Supreme Court, while striking down the National Tax Tribunal, said that if the government is allowed to interfere in fixing terms and tenures of people functioning on those tribunals, it will affect their independence. In other words, if you allow these people to intervene today, then if a CIC is compliant, then he stays. If he isn't, if he is obstructionist, then they remove him. But I want to make one very important point, and Rajesh ji can respond to that. My point is simple. This government is not a friend to the RTI. 10 months out of these 4 years, the post of the Chief Information Commissioner was vacant. It was not a priority for them to fill it. There are activists who are dying across the country. Anjali ma'am and her colleagues have brought this to the government's attention. No action is being taken. So, and thirdly, there are vacant posts right now.
Is that not a priority I was coming to this because Rajesh ji, if your government is serious about right to information, there are 10 sanctioned posts of Central Information Commissioners. Usme se 4 vacancies hain, 6 posts are filled. the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative did a study and found that 25% of the posts of information commissioners across states are vacant. So then how seriously is the government taking RTI?
First, I will respond to my friend. He is telling that we are reducing the term of information commissioner here. No one said that we are reducing the term. It can even be increased. It can be kept for 5 years itself. Let them wait and they would have seen whether we are reducing or not. We don't have any intention. It is only,
let it be
only
fixed at 5 years. Why are you giving yourself that discretion?
Is going to recommend. So he is telling lie. He knows it well.
Listen,
because today only the corruption.
You are saying that you will decide.
Okay, one second. One at a time.
One at a time.
How do you explain the vacancies?
So at the same time, what Madam was saying that the powers, the independence and the authority is being changed. Not at all. All the powers, all the rights, all the obligations, everything is intact. The independence is totally intact.
How?
If you change the term of the services, or if you take only the power of your changing the services term, that doesn't mean independence is affected.
Of course, because then you can change the information commissioners at your
will.
will.
That is not the thing. Here only 3 sections. One, the term of your service as well as your salary part is only to be decided. It is done for all the statutory bodies.
And the tenure. One second. So then please answer my question. Why are all these posts lying vacant in the Information Commission?
Post might be lying vacant, definitely they will be filled, no one denies that.
Sure,
but at the same time, here everything is being deviated that we are trying to change the whole act, nothing done.
No, but
only
if you are serious, if your government is serious about right to information, should these posts not be filled?
I am saying today, the way Madam was saying that on the corruption part, corruption, today we have cleared 2 bills against corruption.
I am asking you about this. I applaud you for the bills against corruption.
Yeah.
But about this, about right to information, why are these posts vacant?
Definitely we will be filling it. If it is vacant, definitely we will be filling it. We have been always positive for transparency, and this government is known for that.
Let me just clarify that ever since the BJP government has come to power in 2014, not a single vacancy has been filled without citizens having to approach courts. Even now, the first vacancy arose 18 months ago. Currently, there are 4 vacancies. 4 more vacancies are going to come up by the end of November, including that of the Chief Information Commissioner. People have again had to approach the Supreme Court for this. Now, if this was a government that was looking like they were interested in having a strong right to information regime, they would have stuck to doing their job that's mandated to them under the law. Where are these amendments coming from? Who is asking for these amendments? And I'm sorry, the other issue which I want to table right now, Nidhi, which is very significant given what you have just mentioned, is that new anti-corruption legislations are being brought out. I want to ask today, what happened to the anti-corruption legislations that the BJP fought shoulder with shoulder
like the
Lokpal? Not a single Lokpal has been appointed in the last 4 years. We've again had to go to court over that matter. The whistleblowers protection law. If you're saying na khaunga na khane dunga, if you're saying we'll promise you a Bhrashtachar Mukt Bharat, people who come out and they expose corruption, is it not the moral obligation of the government to protect them? There are people in the city today, in the state capital, who have lost their family members because they were blowing the whistle against corruption. There have been 3 killings in Bihar in the last 1 month.
Okay, so let Rajesh ji answer that.
First thing Madam was saying, what was the reason for that? To bring parity, to bring level playing field with other statutory bodies where the central government is recommending these 2 things. Definitely it is required. And it is required. It is level playing field and parity is must. That is must.
Which are the other statutory bodies?
All the statutory bodies, all the which have been created under the Act of the Parliament. As RTI Act is created under the Parliament, all other acts which have been created under the Act of Parliament where the central government Second thing, Madam is saying that we have not called for few. We have not called for few acts. Today, will Madam applaud the fugitive persons who have been run from the country, fugitive offenders? Whether Madam will applaud that?
Okay,
whether Madam will applaud the amendment?
Can I just say one line?
In which their minister is only there should be shameful.
But Suni, what I am saying is, the RTI is a tool of great inconvenience for them. This is the tool that revealed how much the Prime Minister spends on his personal publicity. This is how we found out that after demonetization, none of the 3 objectives were met. This is how we found out their spending from the oil windfall gains did not match up to what they were saying. This is how we found out that rural electrification hasn't happened as per the claims. Obviously, it inconveniences them. That is why they sit here. They make these ludicrous arguments. They make these hollow arguments without even realizing what they're saying.
Our Prime Minister every time goes 8,157, that is the RTI reply. And it was done that in RTI.
Then sir, strengthen the RTI, appoint more
Gentlemen,
commissioners.
one second. Okay, 1 second. Can I please ask Aruna Roy, because Aruna Roy, what is it that makes government so scared of RTI? Look, I mean, we are clearly seeing, no, of course the government is scared of the RTI. Even though there has been an attempt to dilute it in other forms over the years. Sometimes answers are not given for months. We are just seeing, posts lying vacant. But what do you think are the things that have really annoyed the government the most to go after the RTI?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Didi?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you asking me?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Well, anyway, let me say that, okay, the first and most important thing is that there are 60 to 70 lakh people monitor the governance and its performance all over this country. They are not centrally managed. They are not centrally monitored and motivated. There are people who are independently taking their constitutional rights seriously and challenging the performance of government in extraordinary ways in innumerable places. Every government has been uncomfortable. This government has been acutely uncomfortable. This government thinks the solution to this kind of participatory questioning of performance of government will only happen if it's totally centralized, if the appointment of all these people, no matter who appoints them, the framework of administration should be centrally designed, that the center will have all the rights. And if you do the framework in the designing and you are deciding on salaries, which is so critical in this case, you bring down the stature of the commission. By bringing down the stature of the commission, all these people who go up in first appeal and cannot get their information, who see the Information Commission as the final court of appeal, will now then have to face another entrenched and probably a set of people who will have their
yeah, absolutely. One hopes that it hasn't just been deferred for another session, but hopefully there is a quiet way in which it would be buried altogether. I'm out of time on this today, but thank you to all of you for joining us, and especially a big shout out to all of you activists like Aruna Roy, Anjali, Shailesh Gandhi, who've really been fighting against any amendments to the Right to Information Act. We'll take a break. When we come back, we're looking ahead to tomorrow's big debate in Parliament. Is this a show of strength for the Prime Minister now as more parties come and support him publicly, or could there be a surprise? That's next.